We're on the air.
Okay, welcome to the last meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board for the year. So, first attendance looks pretty good to me. We got everybody here. Okay. So, first order of business is the minutes from the last meeting. So, everybody looked at them?
Yes.
Any issues? So, could I hear a motion on the topic?
There's only one typo in there.
Oh.
It may be an autocorrect typo.
Oh, good old autocorrect.
It's down under item number 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th paragraph or the line. Mr. Mahoney suggested installing poles, P-O-L-L-S. I think she means poles.
P-O-L-E-S,
Yes,
perhaps?
yes,
Yeah.
And not across the sea.
Right.
Okay, well,
So that's the only
so-
thing I saw.
that's, so as corrected.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, in favor? So since we're a full board, you guys are out of luck kind of
All right.
voting. but
Okay.
That doesn't mean you can't ask questions.
All right,
You can even put up your hands.
Yeah.
all right.
Now, okay, now we're having a finding of facts on Mills Road subdivision. Now, Werner, do we have my
Yep, Mylars and paper copies are on the back table. with-
Okay, and do they have the right name for the LLC on both pages?
I didn't check for that.
It'd be nice. Okay, George, why don't you read the findings? and then we'll-
Kennebunkport Planning Board, findings of fact and decision, approval of minor subdivision revision application, Mills Road subdivision, Kennebunkport, Maine. To revise the Mills Road subdivision, changing the type of water permit release from building to occupancy and add clarifying bearing and distance information. Following a review pursuant to the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and land use ordinance with a public hearing held on December 5th, 2018, the Kennebunkport Planning Board renders the following decision. Findings of fact are as follows. 1, the subdivision is located in the free enterprise zone and has an address of 98 Mills Road, Kennebunkport. 2, the applicant is Mills Road LLC, 1 Little River Road, Biddeford, Maine, 04005. The applicant is represented by Michael J. Sudak of Attar Engineering, 1284 State Road, Elliott, Maine. The property is identified as map 23, block 1, lot 19A on the municipal assessor's maps. The owner has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a trustee's deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 17517, pages 208, dated July 17, 2017. The final subdivision approval for the Mills Road subdivision was approved by the Planning Board on August 2, 2017, and is documented in findings of fact which are recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 17531, pages 191, dated August 4, 2017. 7, the property is a 14-lot cluster on 27.2 acres more or less in the free enterprise zone. 8, Sheet 1, General Note 15 is revised to designate the type of water permit release from building to occupancy. 9, Sheet 2 is revised with corrections of displayed lot areas for lots 2, 3, 7, 8, 12, and 13. Additional bearing and distance information is provided on proposed subdivision lot lines. 10, this amendment to the subdivision plan qualifies as a minor revision in accordance with Section 9.4 of the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations because no additional lots or dwelling units are being created. Decision. In accordance with Articles 7, 8, and 9 of the Town of Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and Title 30-A MRSA Paragraph 4404, the Planning Board grants approval of the applicant's final plan application. Conditions of approval. This approval must be recorded with the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of approval, or it becomes null and void unless an extension is granted by the board in writing. The applicants will comply with all terms and 2, the applicants will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances and subdivision regulations and all applicable federal and state regulations and approvals as well as those specified in the final application, all of which are incorporated herein by reference. Dated December 19, 2018.
Sounds good. So I move we accept the finding as facts.
I second it.
In favor? Okay, let's get it signed.
I sign?
You're in there, yep. We all sign.
I don't vote, I sign.
You signing Mylars afterwards, Tom?
We can do that after the meeting. All right, so the next item is item 181002, 136 North Street. Shepherd and Reed, authorized agent, continued deliberation on the boatyard. So you've sent us a whole bunch of new stuff since.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did everybody get what I sent out? This time it was full-size plans instead
Yes.
of reduced, and I got them hopefully well in advance of your deadline.
Yes.
So, yeah, at our last meeting, we had discussion back and forth about site distances. I still do have on the back side of this, if anybody wants to return to it, the Google Earth image showing the street view, the streets. But at the last meeting, the board's concerns centered around showing parking, and this is laid out in my letter, which I don't have in front of me, but I kind of know what we were talking about. You wanted us to show parking. You wanted us to be more clear about a buffer shown on the plan for, no activity whatsoever. The one thing I think, as I said in my letter, I think we were all sort of euphemistically referring to this area as the grassy knoll. When we look at the backside, the Google image, it is a big grassy area, and Brian and I said, well, we really don't need to do anything on that area. Once I went down the next day, because I wanted to get back on this agenda, and thanks for getting us back on. Went back the next day with my notes from this meeting and got with David Hughes and tried to get you guys what you wanted. And the more we looked at the grassy knoll, that's a very large area.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that the board will work with us on a representation. It wasn't a requirement by any particular board member, but I hope you'll work with us on the fact that we'll give you a 25-foot buffer here. Certainly more than adequate for site distances, but we would like to at least be able to use this area of the property. We don't want to have it to be a complete, no-fly zone. So we've called this auxiliary short-term storage. Brian can tell you more about, he just wants to be able to back boats in there, park them there temporarily, and not have it an off-limits part of his property. We understand that you wanted, you're concerned about site distances and buffers. That we've given you here. We've shown you, this is, I think, part of the reason for the grassy knoll discussion, and let's keep all activity off that, was that we thought that the entire septic field was there. Maybe the board might have thought, that's not true. The field is right here. It's shown in the original packet that I submitted, and now we've shown it here on the final, on this plan. So we're not talking about parking anywhere or doing any activity over that area. Obviously, it's actually flagged on the property now. So, and I believe it was board member Simeone, you said, go ahead and plagiarize if you want to. So one of you said, get us some
Copy paste.
concrete, documentation of what you're gonna do with painting,
Yeah.
bottom washing, and to board member Perlmutter's point, your hazardous waste. So we did just that. We actually downloaded the materials, cut and paste them, put a cover page on, saying that this is our proposal for this particular project, which we would expect you to incorporate as a condition of approval. Brian is fully intending to comply with all of those things, which were drop-downs in the website, but we didn't show them to you. Now we have. What else, Brian? I think this is the boat storage and brokerage area, I'll be on this side of the property. And I had mentioned the square footage of 9,000 in my last submission. I think this is roughly that. We didn't measure it out or have Dave Hughes do that. And then, of course, you were concerned about entrances and exits. And we've proposed to have these signs. Brian and I actually thought about putting no through traffic on the exit one too, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're already inside, it says exit, I think you know if you're on the street, you're not to go in there. So we have just put no through traffic on the enter, but there is to be no through traffic, obviously. We don't want people passing through, cutting off. So that, on the enters, though, you'll have the no through traffic designation, and on the exit, you'll have just that. And we're not proposing to change the current configuration of the curb cut. It worked perfectly well for the trucking company, right? And Brian, it's gonna work well for his purposes also. So we've measured the distances. If you want those distances, we have some distances shown here, but Brian has taken a few more. If you're interested in them or want them on the final plan, we'll be happy to do that. But know that we're trying to keep things the way they are now and don't see any need, aside from your legitimate concerns about enter and exit, we don't see any need to change the way we enter and exit the property on the curb cuts or on the current driveways. And I think that's it. I immediately went down and set an appointment with Brian, with Werner. The client is Brian, the prior code officer is Brian. I always make that mistake. Anyway, we went and met with Matt and Werner to go over this, and I won't put any words in his mouth, but we were trying to get on the same page. Werner wasn't here, Matt was last meeting. So Werner's aware that we were going to come in tonight with this, and we're happy to take your questions.
I have a
Yeah.
couple, and then I'm sure others do too. First off, the newly named auxiliary storage, or whatever it's, the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
Let me just show you what I'm concerned about on the picture here. Given the septic is up here, right, it seems like we should probably not have an entrance that goes through this little tiny, or this relatively small area here. When it's the main entrance to the auxiliary would probably be through that side. So I guess I would maybe want to block that off in some way. Not say that this little piece here is part of the, unless he's gonna back something into it, or I just.
There's no entrance there onto the grass.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, go ahead, Brian. I think,
Is that where the oil tank is?
Yes, the entrances are here, here and here.
Yes.
There's nothing up here.
Right. No, I'm just saying for this little triangle here. Seems like if you're gonna back something back a boat into the auxiliary storage, and if you do it from here, you're gonna.
Oh, yeah, you're
eventually
absolutely
drive over
correct.
the
There's
septic
actually
tank.
curb stops here.
Yes.
And so the tank is there, which I guess may or may not stay.
Oh, okay.
So there's really no way into there from there.
Right, so I just felt the auxiliary storage could be slightly redrawn so that it doesn't
Absolutely.
go over the septic
Sure thing.
at all.
yeah,
I had actually dotted a line. I guess you didn't put it on there.
so you had dotted a line, are you talking about, we're gonna show where you're thinking of it?
Just diagonal, from here to here.
Okay,
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Yeah.
that'd be
Did
good.
all the other board members, Mr. Higgins, did you see what he was talking about?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
I have an idea.
okay.
Okay,
Idea about changing that or another idea?
To be honest, I see where Tom's going with it. I'm not sure it's entirely necessary. I think that area is, if you're putting curb cuts there, and I know that there's that oil tank that's.
You mean curb stops?
Curb stops, sorry.
Yep.
Not curb cuts. There's that oil tank there too. There's really no way to back anything into that area of the auxiliary. And really the only way is further on the northern side of the auxiliary area, so.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think Brian's happy, I think, from what he's just said, to actually
Yeah, that's
draw a
fine.
line
If-
there and
if
say,
he wants
no,
to do
no
that, then-
parking or no activity, yeah.
Okay, my other comment is in your letter, Bruce, it says, on the second page says, wastewater will be recycled and reused on premises for the season with any remainder disposed of with the sewer department or Clean Harbors. You're not on a sewer, and your septic is only for people's, is only for people, not for dumping stuff from your, so how does the sewer department get into this?
If other board members had the same, that's my fault. That wasn't explained very well. Brian, do you want to explain? I mean, it's going to be taken off-site to the sewer department, not put in a, Brian? It'd be trucked, yeah.
Be trucked, and that's something that the sewer
district
is
will-
aware of, and
They were willing to test it and take it conditionally on what was it, otherwise it would have to be moved to Portland if they decided not to take it to Clean Harbors.
okay,
Yeah,
all right. I guess
Get it
that-
off-site. It's not going to go into our septic for sure.
That was my concern.
Yeah, it was going to be tested by the sewer department. If they couldn't take it, it wasn't meeting their standards, it would be sent to Portland.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so when I've seen this kind of thing, there's usually just a sump. So you're gonna build a sump to collect your wastewater and then use a vac truck?
Yes,
So you're gonna be constructing a sump then?
yes.
Ah, okay. Is that shown here?
It's in this.
It is shown on the plan, it's right, this whole area, will drain into a sump at one end of it.
Okay.
Very, very similar to what you see in the pictures that we provided in the packet.
Okay, but the sump isn't there yet?
No, it's not built as of yet.
So could you show where the location of the sump?
Sure,
I think that would be useful.
sure. What I'm thinking is it'll be at this end, and everything would pitch that way.
Okay.
The whole end will be the sump.
Well,
But
okay, it'd be nice to
matching-
see the dimensions, and
Okay.
that's also gonna be kind of a no-go zone. You won't want to park anything on top of that, I guess.
No, it wouldn't, it's gonna be there'll be a drop off going into it where the water will collect.
Hey, Larry,
couldn't park there, right?
Correct,
Oh, I see, it's gonna be open.
yes.
Okay, so you still need some barrier around
Larry's
it, though.
Yeah, you'll need a curb
Oh.
stop or.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Sure.
sorry. Okay, all right. Well, that'll be great, yeah. Should I continue?
could we, just a suggestion, could that possibly be a condition of approval, a condition in the approval? That the pressure wash area is, has that constructed down the road, instead of going back another 2 weeks and having them put that on the plan, can that be some sort of condition in any type of finding of facts? I mean, it has to comply with the state and federal requirements anyway, which should be, I think, a condition of approval, but the construction of a sump as well, could we include that as a condition? Just a thought.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's up to me, but
We would appreciate that.
Yeah.
it'd be great if you could show that on your drawing. And then, of course, the question that comes to mind is, volume, because if it's open to the atmosphere, they'll be collecting rain and snow in addition to the wash water. So, that's why I expected it to be covered, I suppose.
Well, if you look in the manual we provided, there's a diagram for how you dispose of the wastewater.
Uh-huh.
It's at least 4 inches off the bottom of the collection, and
Yeah.
it would be opened when it was not in use.
Are you talking about the first description of the wastewater in that manual? There were two of them.
It would be in the section under boat washing.
Yep.
And then on page 2-21,
Yep.
gives you one diagram. And on page 2-22 on the backside, it shows you the diagram for the diverter system.
So that's the system you're going for rather than option B in the manual?
Yeah, permanent.
Permitted.
correct.
Yeah.
We were expecting, if you get to an approval, to have these that we submitted to be conditions of approval. And we follow those procedures specifically.
Yeah.
If you want to mention that there's a question as to whether it was one diagram or another, you can certainly designate the proper one.
So the outfall would just be on the parking area? Because there's no connection between your sump and the sewer or your septic, so
It
if you've
depends on
got,
construction, but outfall would likely be on the outside, and it's, you know, it's concrete or pavement all the way around this. On the outside is a grass area where we'd like to excavate and do whatever sort of drainage we needed to do.
but it would be just discharged to the local environment, basically.
Yes, after it's cleaned, and then you would only open the valve after everything was clean, and then it would discharge as per the diagram in the packet. There's a 4-inch, it's 4 inches up off the bottom, so any sediment would stay inside of in the wash area, which is what they call for.
Okay. So, are any of the materials that you wash from the hulls soluble that would remain off the bottom? See, I mean, you're gonna be contaminating industrial waste with rainwater. And if you have, dissolved solids in there, how are you gonna keep that from
Yeah.
discharging out across your parking lot?
The idea is that you clean it after use, sweep it up.
Clean it
Pick
immediately
up-
after use.
Pick up any solid material and put it into a container, a sealed container for disposal at a later date. And then any water that was in there while you were using it is sucked into the tank for recycling. And at that point, it's dry, and then any rainwater would then be discharged to the ground.
So what volume of solids are generated when you clean a boat?
Not a lot, not a lot. I don't expect that I end up with 5 gallons after 5 years
Oh.
of it,
Okay.
if I had to guess.
Barnacles.
So 1.5%?
I guess, I'm not thinking about it in math terms, but
But a small
that's
portion.
a very small portion.
I have quite a few questions.
Okay.
You've answered one of them, the waste disposal system, knowing which one you're going to use and how you're going to use it. But we had two major issues there, and one of them was basically the planning board really does have a duty not to make that intersection any more dangerous than it is
Okay,
already. And we've gone over that with discussions. And I have an issue with storing anything in that grassy area. One of the things I asked for that I still haven't seen, basically, is some photographs of site distance across that grassy area and on the edge. And even though you've provided a 25-foot buffer, okay, we still don't know what it's gonna look like when somebody looks out over North Street coming north, or somebody comes along Arundel Road. I'm very loath to approve any kind of storage on that grassy area for that reason. I'd like to see it left open so that traffic is not impeded in any way. Sight lines of traffic.
How many trees are there, Glenn? Roughly.
5, I think.
There's mature trees there, as you know. You said-
There are mature trees, there's, that's something I'll get to too.
Yep.
Okay. Those were the two major issues, was the intersection and the waste disposal. But I mean, as I go through section 10, you've got some setbacks there, and you've got the entrances and exits marked and some signage, which is very nice. I appreciate you putting that in there.
Thank you.
I think it helps. There was no indication of topography in 10.6C.8. I think most of the planning board understands that, and that's something that we could sort of let go of. But there's some other issues there. 10.6, let's see, C8, There's no real indication of how wide those driveways are. If you could give us some indication, if you're going to give an improved map, it would be nice to see how wide those driveways are.
Okay.
Where does the water supply come in? Is it a well?
It's public,
It's public water?
yes. Somewhere, something like this here.
Something like that, okay. Do you have a pipe that goes to the septic system, the septic field?
Absolutely.
Are you putting your parking spots over that pipe?
Yes, it's all designed for it. You know, it's drive over. There's been semis driving over it for 30 years.
Well, just because they've been driving over it for 30 years doesn't mean it's designed to be parked on. My question is it a septic system that can handle parked cars or trucks, as there very well may be?
Yeah, the tank is a drive-over type tank, and the pipe is below ground enough where it's not an issue going to the field from the tank.
Pretty good sized manhole cover there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that has been driven over, but to answer your question, it's in the hot top.
But it was driven over by 18-wheelers too, which would be heavier than these most of the time. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
But has anyone checked that pipe to see what the 18-wheelers might have done to it? Do you know for sure that that pipe can handle the kind of traffic?
Everything works fine, and you know, as stated by what do we call that? The plan we had drawn out by the engineers.
Yeah, the Alfred plan. I mean, that was one of the early things that Warner suggested we do. We were ready to come with a plan that didn't show the septic, and that's why we had,
Jim Long.
remember the original plan showing, and we had Alfred come out and test it. So as to whether he did a weight test, all he did was tell us where things were, and they were functioning properly.
Okay.
There were no flaws in the system.
So that's pretty much a sign that pipe is okay.
Well, you know, I would suspect if you've got flow in the tank, you know, then it tells me, that you've got a pretty good connection from the building into the tank if the tank is actually, if the tank's been pumped, and if you've got records of any pump usage or anything like that. I'd be more concerned if somebody were able to pop the tank and it was dry.
Yeah.
That to me would indicate that, you'd have some other issues elsewhere. But
Okay. All right. Landscape and buffering plan showing what will remain and what will be planted, indicating botanical and common names of plants and trees, dimensions, approximate times of planting and maintenance plans. You've given some indication on the photographs of where the trees are, but we don't know what those trees are, how mature they are. This is supposed to be in accordance with the land use ordinance, something that's indicated on your plan. And it comes into play later on when you have to look at 10.7 D1, where you have buffers. And your trees on your property line or shrubbery that surrounds parking areas, and you don't indicate the placement of any existing or proposed buffers around parking areas. One of the things we did receive, and we received it late, was a letter from an abutter, not an abutter, but somebody who lives on Walker's Lane. And they're complaining that you've got some stuff parked on their trailers and things like that. Have you seen the letter?
Yes, I have.
It's come in and so forth, okay. I will remind you that this is being examined as conditional use for a boatyard, not for a lot of other things. So
Correct.
if you do decide to change the use or have a mixed use, you may need to come back to the planning board. Is that right, Warner?
for a mixed use occupancy?
Well, if, for example, it's in the future, you want to change it from a boatyard to a boatyard and something else, you would have to come back to the planning board?
If that's listed as a conditional use, then yes.
Yeah.
If you have something that's listed as a permitted use, that wouldn't necessarily come back to the board.
Okay. Well, this person does make a point in that when you're just coming into Kennebunkport, you don't want to see a lot of parked cars and trucks and trailers and things like that. And one of the conditions that we have in the land use ordinance for conditional uses for uses around parking lots is they be buffered with shrubbery or trees, such as conifers that have low-growing branches, something that will hide it from view. So you might want to plan, or might put in as a conditional use, I think the planning board could consider it, that eventually you plant some shrubbery around where you're parking cars, where people would see it from the street. Just around those 5 parking spots, I think, would be.
You have to figure that out where they don't impede on visibility of the intersection as well as, you can't
Well,
plant them in
they're
the
far enough
septic
back.
system.
You could have low-growing shrubs such as viburnum. Steve could give you some pointers there. You could go sit next to him and he'd probably give you a dozen or more that would fit that category.
Sure.
So I think it's something that might be considered for this plan.
Okay.
Right. You're not planning any lighting, right?
Correct.
Okay. Erosion control. Are there other places where you might need erosion control in this particular situation? Not just where you're washing, but in other places. I mean, you have some spaces listed now right next to your boat brokerage area. 10 by 30 spaces. Are those parking spaces?
Yes.
Okay. Are they on pavement?
Yes.
Okay. And your parking spaces in your parking lot, are they on pavement, are going to be pavement, or are they going to be just gravel?
It's pavement.
It's going to be
It's
pavement?
pavement. Almost all of this area is paved around here.
Okay.
There's one area in this corner over here that's not, it's gravel, but everything else is
Okay.
paved.
So the 5 new parking spaces are on pavement?
Correct.
Okay. Well, the section 6.9, A11 on the land use ordinance does require screening around parking areas, so you might think of, your buffering of that. And I think the pavement will be fine for runoff. And that was basically all that I had. Oh.
Okay.
But I am concerned about that grassy area and parking anything on it without having someone take a look at it from the site, the height of somebody
Let me ask you, if I
driving
were
a car.
to lay it out and place vehicles at the intersection of these lines here and take photos from when you're at the stop signs, would that be what
Not
you
when
were
you're
looking
at the
for?
stop signs, but when you're coming up to the stop signs and at the stop signs, so that you could, if you could see vehicles approaching.
Okay. I'll
But
take a look at
I
that.
would also keep in mind what the abutter said about, this is the first site that some people get of Kennebunkport, and you probably don't want to park an old trailer there.
Yeah, I don't really intend on using this as a daily thing. I just am not really ready to give up that much of my property that I've paid so much for no, if there's a valid reason, I'm fine with it, but,
That's fine, if you can show that it doesn't affect the intersection.
okay.
Intersections.
Intersections,
Correct.
yes, many of them.
There are several.
Right. I mean, I see the biggest one being when you're at this stop sign here, and this one here would be the biggest, correct?
Well, you
On
also,
the little cut-through road,
yeah.
Yeah, the cut-through road that goes over to Walker,
right?
that's,
Yeah.
And it's also the unfamiliarity of people who are coming into town for the first time with a GPS.
Yeah.
And they're doing 45 or 55
Well,
in a
that's-
log cabin.
but
and
they're
then they
they're
hit
supposed
Wood
to.
Street.
It's stated it goes from 45 to 30.
I know,
Right there.
but they also nail a lot of tickets right there as well, because people don't see it and they don't pay attention.
I've never seen an accident there, and I go there 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, I don't disbelieve that it's, if you said it's dangerous, it is, but I've never seen an accident there.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a near miss there.
I've seen a few near misses there, especially from that cutoff over to Walker with somebody coming up north not paying any attention.
Yeah.
I admitted to that once before the board. Well,
I had a concern last meeting, and I think you met it. The problem was the proximity of the driveways, that they have to be within, spaced out by 100 feet. By limiting the egress and the exit with signage, I think you've solved that problem. I would suggest that you put on the back side of those a do not enter sign.
Okay.
Because otherwise someone can, just from, people are used to using the property.
That
They
makes
come
sense.
in, they feel like going out the other way, and it would limit your liability if you've labeled it that way.
Okay.
For instance, the Baptist church, as I was coming over here, someone had pulled in and it's paved, it's got a big white arrow that points in. Well, someone decided that they didn't want to go there, so they were backing out into the intersection. And it's one of those things, like a half a second, and the guy was swinging around, what a whack. It's just, I think it's a good idea to say, do not enter there.
Okay.
So on the back side of this sign, or this one, or both?
I think on
On both,
right?
yeah.
I don't
I
want
think it
someone
makes sense coming
and
and leaving.
yeah, I don't want someone exiting into
Right.
an entrance while someone's coming in and vice versa. Seem reasonable?
That's easy to do.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yep. So we can show 4 blocks, front and back of each of those signs.
Just put do not enter on.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about some of the comments about the buffering of the parking. I mean, we're trying to get sight distances here. I mean, we do have the welcome to Kennebunkport sign that Matt Philbrick said he actually either built and/or installed, like right in here. So,
But your parking spaces are much further in.
yeah. And, you know, frankly, we're storing a lot of boats there. I mean, if you're gonna
But the
buffer cars,
But the boats are gonna be stored towards the back.
yeah, no, I understand. There'll be a lot of boats on site at some point between storage and brokerage, but we want to work with you, and we also want to, I mean, the idea of us coming back again with photographs showing, I'm unclear exactly what you wanted, Ms. Perlmutter, you would like to see photographs taken so that you can tell what it would look like. You'd like Brian to park vehicles or boats there so you could actually see it?
Okay.
I mean, I'm struggling to see if we can't come up with a condition of approval that you could feel comfortable with and that wouldn't hamstring Brian.
And so, just, once again, show us where the boats would be?
Well, this is, again, auxiliary, you know, short-term storage. They can't go anywhere inside this 25-foot buffer, so they could possibly be, you know, and we've agreed to put a line from here across. So we're looking at, you know, this little area here,
Okay, and then where would the cars be that people are concerned about?
here.
Because the
these
cars
5
are, I mean, the cars have
spots
to be 1/3 the height of those boats, because the boats are gonna be up
on
anyway.
trailers, yeah.
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 The concern, I think, is just the visibility, that what does a car see as he's coming into that intersection and is impeded by the boats,
Yeah, well,
or by
that's,
whatever is stored in the storage area?
we're trying to get 25 feet off the property line. I mean, I think, isn't the sign in that 25-foot buffer?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty close to the property line. Our thought was that would be enough for folks coming from Walker Lane across the Cutoff Road, down Arundel Road, and this way. The 25 feet is a good, we thought, a good open shot to see through the property without completely eliminating any use of that area at all.
I think the
If
board's
you-
been asking for several weeks for documentation, which would be a photograph, so you can show what the sight lines are, just so we have it as part of the record.
I think that the applicant is asking what sight line exactly are we worried about? From what road to what road?
Oh, we have said.
I haven't heard
From
it.
Arundel Road, looking toward North Street, and from North Street, looking to the crossover from Arundel Road, the crossover that goes to Walker's Lane.
So if I'm driving,
Sure. Bruce, that you can actually see it better on the
thank you.
the photo.
So let's do an example. Where's the vehicle that we're worried about not seeing something? Just pick a road.
This is what, apparently a poor attempt to satisfy, this is what we
I'm just
came up with.
asking for you to do an example.
Right.
So I've got a vehicle that's coming from town, from Dock Square, and it's heading out North Road, right? It's coming up to the intersection. What are we worried about?
We're worried about the crossover.
From?
The stop sign between Walker's Lane and the part that crosses over from Arundel to Walker's Lane there.
So you're worried about not seeing somebody on to
The
your
stop sign.
left?
Yes, and also from Arundel Road, looking over to North Street, because you're going up Arundel Road, and you have to be able to see the traffic that's coming
Up North Street.
up North Street.
So we want to look at vehicles that are coming up along either side of that triangle, and they want to be able to see if anything is on the opposite side. And you want them to be able to look across the property. The applicant has offered a 25-foot buffer to not use the outermost 25 foot of their property so as to facilitate the ability for drivers to see across it. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct, yep.
And what the board is suggesting is that perhaps more of the property has to be reserved as unusable. That seems extreme to me.
Well, if we could see the sight lines from the perspective
Point
of
taken.
somebody
So I think what you're hearing is a frustration on the part of some of the board members that they've asked, and I did listen to the last meeting, I know I wasn't here, that they've asked for pictures of the sight lines at 2, if not 3 successive meetings, and we're still not seeing them. Now, we could schedule a site visit. I mean, that would be another way to do this. I mean, do it in real time and try to knock this down.
Yep.
But
This kind of,
I've driven by it myself and convinced myself that I thought that the 25-foot was enough, but I don't
That
think
w-
you've made the point.
that was my thought. Is
I don't
everyone
think
talks
you-
about how often they go through
I
this
don't think you've
intersection.
made the case to the board. I'm
The
trying to
board-
translate here
I
because we're
understand.
going back and
I'm hearing that
forth.
very clearly.
Okay.
But when people go through that intersection, they have so much to watch. They're not looking to see where sight lines are. They're looking to see what cars are coming, who's going through the
Right.
stop sign. Watch the speed limit, especially if they're coming from the south. I mean, coming from the north to the south.
So had
It's
we come
really-
in tonight,
It's really the applicant's responsibility to show that that will not affect the intersection at all. Will not make that intersection more difficult for people. I'm not saying that you can't have that land. What I'm saying is that you haven't shown that it's not going to be a problem.
I have a hypothetical here. I'm not, Nina, I hear your point, but I'm struggling with it. This is a property that this fellow owns, and I think the land use ordinance would allow him to build a building there. Right, he's not proposing to do any construction, he's proposing to change its use from one conditional use to another. And we're looking at it in that light. But he's not proposing any new structures. If he were to build a structure there, we'd look at it, and if it met the setbacks and it met the height, which I think is like 35 foot there,
You're talking about structures. He's not proposing a building. He's talking about parking vehicles or other trailers or boats or something there as an auxiliary storage area.
understood?
Some of those boats can be as tall as a building, a one-story building, maybe 1.5 stories. And we're trying to ascertain whether that would affect the sight of somebody driving along, their ability to see someone at the stop sign.
If he were proposing a structure, a building,
No,
if.
You don't
no,
have to.
If he were, just
Okay.
hypothetically, would we be in a position to disallow that
yes,
because his property, we thought it would be unsafe for him to build a structure there?
yes.
It
Well,
would
then we
change the
couldn't, we
sightlines.
couldn't drive through any city because they've got tall buildings everywhere.
That's where I'm coming from, Scott.
Well, and you know, you may discover if you actually show the sightlines on here that you don't necessarily need that entire 25-foot buffer. I mean, by showing the sightlines, you may discover that there's, you know, a more efficient way. You might recover some of the area.
My concern is if I come here with some photographs that have been taken, board members will say, what if we have a 20-foot bow, a 30-foot bow? And to your point that a building could be put in, as long as we meet a setback requirement, I disagree. We could put a building here if we were starting from scratch.
Well, as to the height of the boat or whatever it is you're parking there, I thought we were talking about a car on North Street looking across to see if a car was coming on the opposite lane. So we're looking at something sort of at eye level,
Yep.
right? So a vehicle of any size, an RV or anything, a boat, is going to be an obstruction if it's in that plane.
Well,
I don't
but
think
like
the
I
height of
say,
it really
if you
matters
actually
here.
draw the sightlines, you may discover that you can reduce your 25-foot buffer, right? Because right now, you're just guessing. If you show the sightlines, then you'll be able to identify exactly
So
what.
you want us to go hire an engineer and get on the ground and show sightlines, or,
You don't have to hire an engineer.
yeah?
All that I asked for from the very beginning was to take some pictures from the height of somebody sitting in an automobile, looking across that as they come across, as they come up North Street, or as they're coming, from Arundel and so forth, to be able to see.
So maybe
And
we
if you put in some markers where your 25-foot buffer is, then we have a good idea of whether that sight distance is there and the intersection is still fine.
Yeah, you may discover you don't need 25 feet. See?
You mentioned in the letter, the historical
Yeah.
usage of it. No one's ever parked stuff there.
Yep.
And now there may be something parked there. And so we just have to demonstrate
Yep, no, I
that
get it.
it's not going to impede the visibility. Chances are it's not,
Okay, no, I hear you.
but you just gotta
So
document it.
it's this, put a 25-foot tape across here, let's say, and take actual photographs from a vehicle.
At
eye
various
level,
points.
Here, even here. Yep.
And you could even do it with an overlay on here and the map. I think you could demonstrate what the line of sight would be with a 25-foot buffer. I might be able, with a 25-foot buffer, be able to see quite a long distance onto the
Yeah.
Cornwall Road.
Yeah.
Let me bring up a hypothetical. If on that area that you're looking at, there were magnificent 3-foot diameter,
Oak trees.
and no, elm trees,
Elm
beautiful,
trees, oh.
thick elm trees, right there. And they were 40 feet high, so that's 3.5 stories. Would we as the town want to cut them down to make sure that we had a little more safety? Or would we want to keep those trees?
As a member of the Shade Tree Committee, I can tell you right now that the town has a right to take down trees that are obstructing views. And we would fight like hell to try to keep the elm trees. There's no question about it. But if the town decided they were obstructing the view and making the intersection dangerous, they would take them down.
So.
I noticed the other member of the Shade Tree Committee just left.
In all fairness, only in the public right of way. That's in all fairness, only in the public right of way. would the town have jurisdiction over the removal of trees?
That's true, but I think they could put a lot of pressure on you to remove trees. Although that conifer that's at the intersection of Spring Street and Main Street, that was really a problem for a long time before they put up the stop signs. Nobody ever forced them to take that down.
Yeah.
That's true.
I don't think it requires an engineer. It's
Okay,
my
so
guess. I think if you
If the
have
board's not comfortable yet,
a couple of photographs that
Yeah.
show it, get a ruler, overlay the 25-foot buffer, a 10-foot buffer. I think the buffer is determined by what the line of sight is.
Yeah.
And if you pick a reasonable distance and you cut across from here, blocking off where, if something were parked here, would it block the line of sight to the intersection? That's the concern. Just, I don't think it
yeah,
would
we can give you.
take but an hour and
Eight-
a camera and a ruler to figure it out.
That's legit, that's fine. We had hoped that this would do it first. I understand now why you want more information. You did ask from the very beginning. You said, get me an eye-level view. I was hoping this would do it. It didn't do it. And so we can come back with 8x10s and sightlines on here. I'm speaking for you. You comfortable with this?
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Can we, is it possible, and I understand the concerns, I get the sightline issues. I think the 25-foot buffer is a reasonable accommodation by the applicant. That is a large buffer that they're offering. Having grown up in the town and driven past that 1,000 times, I get the traffic concerns, but the 25-foot buffer, I feel like, alleviates a lot of those concerns. Especially, I mean, at some point you have to put the obligation on the drivers as well to stop at stop signs and pay attention to traffic.
If-
Speed limits.
And speed limits. That can't be our obligation to,
That's right.
to make other motorists, comply with the law.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because what if we said 35 feet?
I don't, don't give away too much.
No, I get it,
Well-
but this is costing him money
I
every
know,
time I
and
come here.
I understand that, and
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
I am proposing not a formal vote, but if we take an informal soft vote as to the 5 board members who, maybe it's a yay or nay, and if it's a nay, then we go back to the, you make them go through a little more hoops. Me personally, I think I'm comfortable with the proposal. That they're not changing, the only thing that's changing is the use. That's it. There's nothing else changing really with that parcel from what I can tell. They're not adding structures, they're not adding new pavement, the entrance and exits are pretty much staying the same.
And there was
The
no,
buildings
there
are
was no
staying the
prohibition
same.
of parking in that
It's a
area
free
before.
enterprise zone. I am,
It doesn't matter what came before. We're looking, this is a new use.
I think there's
understand,
some
but it does to
discretion
me.
there. I feel like there's some discretion on the board's part to,
Like I
I
said.
mean, do you want to make them put in new curb cuts and put in buffering and put on, I mean, that's an
No.
expensive endeavor.
No, but you don't have to make it a condition, but I'm just pointing out that you have a neighbor who's worried about what this is gonna look like, and I think the neighbors have a point that when you come into Kennebunkport, it should look pretty good. Boats look better than tankers, there's no question about it, to most people anyway. I'm willing to go along, like I said, there are 2 major issues. One was waste disposal, and they seem to have solved
Yeah,
that.
agreed.
Okay, and we put in the condition that they use option A, and that's fine. The second one was the intersection, and that we not make it any worse than it is. Okay? We can vote to basically conditionally approve this application, I believe. I think we can. Given that we're all okay with sightlines if they provide a photograph, or something that shows that the 25-foot buffer will work.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, so that we would approve it tonight, and when you come back in 2 weeks, in fact.
Right, when you would be normally doing your findings anyway.
We would have
I mean,
findings of fact presumably already
I'm
all
going to write
set.
up the findings of
Yep.
fact, and if you can get that to the planning board members, and everybody's satisfied with it in 2 weeks, we'll just give you the findings of fact as,
You know what I would really like, and I'm mindful, we don't have any adversaries here in the audience unless Sandra's gonna get up and start making noise. But I would want, I mean, you've made a good point. Warner's not on this board. You know, when I recap a meeting, it's not with him, but I would kind of like some board member to, before we submit and come here to the next meeting, say, yep, that's kind of what we were after. I'm really trying to listen to what you're saying. I hope I get it right. But is there a way we could have a board rep, or representative say, like you as a case manager, look at the photographs and at least give us go back to square one or come back with better photos? I just throw that out there.
I'm not sure I can do that
Or
Right.
Warner,
by
could you do that?
myself. Or-
Well,
Can I suggest something?
Could you assist in that?
If I were to tomorrow park a vehicle here and here for the next couple of days, and everybody on the board's gonna drive by there, could you, with your own eyes, would that make sense?
Are you gonna do a boat there?
I guess I could, but I
That
was just
makes
thinking a
sense.
vehicle
I
would
think a
be
boat would
easy.
be better, honestly.
Okay.
A couple boats.
Yeah,
All right, I could do that.
Yeah, I think that would be really smart.
that would
And that would be on the
illustrate.
outer edges of, I mean, I'm thinking in here, if I even do it, but,
Well,
you
if
know,
you're
that
gonna,
would,
if
that
you're
would
open to
clarify.
that, why don't we just throw a 25-foot tape across the front and then park where we're talking about, right? So you can.
Yeah, I'm
just
thinking
see-
measuring in from here and here
Yeah.
and putting them, I think these two areas right here would be, you know,
Yeah, please.
where you'd be most concerned about, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
So
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. So I was just wondering about, see, you're giving away a lot with that 25-foot buffer. So before you go to all the trouble of putting your boats out there, you might want to just actually go check it out, because you may discover that you could recover some of your 25-foot buffer, but you may need one area, just kind of flatten it out. You see that, you know, the little corner there? Maybe instead of 25 feet, by maybe 30 feet, just to provide a clear sight, you know. That's why it'd be great if you went, checked it out, established the sight line, and then decided whether you want to modify your proposal to suit the actual line of sight issue, and then maybe put a boat there. I don't know.
I'm comfortable with the 25 feet. There's nice oak trees out here. I don't need to be out.
If
he
he
doesn't need
modifies the proposal, I think it
Okay.
has to come back to the board.
Yeah, just
All right.
It'd be
leave it
better
at the
to-
25.
Okay, all right,
it
sorry,
there.
okay,
Really appreciate the thought.
okay.
How about if we approve it on the condition that you put those vehicles out there, or boats, whatever, and the planning board has the opportunity to look, and if they do not find it a problem, and hopefully everyone will get back to me, or if they don't get back to me, I'll assume everybody's okay with it. I can write up the findings of fact for the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Yes.
That's fair, thank you.
Okay.
That's a nice comment.
So I had a couple more questions. Back on paint, okay, I kind of understand about the solid waste and the liquid waste, but do you have any issues with air pollution? Like, you know, do you have any, when you paint this stuff, are you going to have some kind of controlled environment in which you have to, recover volatile organic
I'm not doing any
compounds?
spray painting. Everything's rolling.
All rolling, latex-based, no oil
I-
issues?
Yeah, I mean, I try to use mostly water-based at this point in time.
Okay, so air pollution is not gonna be a problem, so you're not gonna be having any stacks or anything going up,
No.
okay? All right, and then my other question was, I did discover a DEP, I guess a general permit. It seems to require some regular sampling and reporting of, I guess, whatever your, you know, the byproducts of your activity here. So is that gonna be an issue? You gonna establish some sampling points?
In speaking to them, there was nothing that I needed if you're not discharging any wastewater. If you're containing, you're holding your wastewater. I was actually told that they don't even issue permits for any of that.
Okay,
So if you're containing your wastewater and disposing of it properly, then there's, as far as I'm aware, from talking to them, there was nothing.
okay. So, it'd be great if you could update your sketch here with the location of your sump and then any indication of what kind of fencing or curbing you need to make sure nobody falls in or don't back a vehicle into it. And, because the sump could be quite large. I mean, I don't know how much water you use for boat washing, but it could be several.
It depends on what we find when we excavate here, but the sump could be in the center or it could be at this end. If you look, there's a good picture in that manual, the photograph of another one. I don't know if you're looking at it right there.
I don't know.
I think it's on if you go back towards the beginning,
Ah. Right here?
like that one.
Yeah.
That one right there.
Right.
Is a good
Okay.
example. Other than mine has sides to it, whereas that one's just open.
Okay. Okay, so no sampling or reporting because you're not discharging anything to the environment.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
You
So
still
I-
have a building permit for when he digs the sump, right?
So because you're gonna be collecting this material, so are you gonna have to identify a specific area for your drums of storage of these items?
I'm envisioning a 250-gallon plastic tank that's forkliftable, on the back of the truck for.
Okay, so that's gonna be something else in your parking lot there.
Yeah, it'll probably be sitting, inside of here, if I had to guess.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
So,
Nope.
you have a good handle on finding the facts.
I think so.
So, I guess we need to approve the plan. And, with that condition that you mentioned, that they'll do something so that we can drive by and take a look. And,
Yeah, I move that we approve the plan with the condition that vehicles or boats are placed in the 25-foot setback so that the planning board members can drive by and take a look at the site distances, see whether there's any impediment, and if the planning board members have no complaints,
Right.
basically, or don't approve, that the plan will be approved.
that's it, right.
I second that.
How many boats would you like to see in there?
Just two would probably be enough.
You got two handy?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
At the extreme ends,
Yeah, he knows where to put them.
just to be clear.
Okay,
And I'd like to second that.
all right. In favor? Okay. Thank you, and we hope not to see you again. Do it one more time, but
Yeah, one more time.
all right, the next item is item 181003, Margaret Jandal, Walsh Engineering Authorized Agent, and this is a public hearing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Bill Walsh from Walsh Engineering. And as you said, I'm here on behalf of Margaret Jandel, who's on Marshall Point. And we are proposing a riprap revetment on her property. To give you a little orientation, coming into Marshall Point is in this direction. Dead end is out here. Atlantic Ocean is to the bottom of the page here. Margaret has a house here that we were here last year and raised that up. That's the house right there. We actually put a new foundation on it and made it conform with the new flood regulations. And the proposal that we have in front of you is this right here, putting in a new stone revetment on the ocean side. So it would be gonna go right in this area right here, kind of looking right down the page. It would be a big 4-foot diameter stones, average 4-foot diameter stones, so they could be anywhere between 3 and 6 feet in diameter. And it'll be a couple of rows of those that will be dug in and placed through here. We will place those rocks appropriately so she has a good sight line into the water and they don't block her view. With that, we're also proposing to just raise the grade very slightly on these two areas over here with the spoils that come out of there. The grade is a little bit low right through here. There's a channel that's actually kind of formed just due to the waves. It's a cobble beach and it's kind of formed through here. And actually just came over a week and a half or so ago when we had some high tides. And actually came through again there. So the idea is to build that up, probably in this lower area. It's gonna come up probably 3 feet higher. And then just raise these areas up just above the flood elevation, and they're only coming up probably a foot or less in most places. It's a little more right down here at this end, but that's the idea. Again, this is just to use the spoils in those places so that we don't have to haul it off-site. So try to be a little green about that as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. First off, I realized that you did not include the other 2 deeds.
Oh,
I
just
looked-
have one?
I found them in the York County
Thank you.
Registry of Deeds. If in fact we approve this, I have a finding of facts that suggests you better darn well give us those also.
okay, we can do that.
But, anyhow, that's, I don't know, does anybody in the board have any questions on this before I open up the public hearing?
Well, I just wanted, last week I asked whether longshore currents coupled with some kind of waves would impact the house, and you pointed out that it was actually erected on some kind of a elevated knoll.
Yeah.
But then I looked at the map, and would that have an effect on any of the other neighbors? Are they all on the same?
Yeah, it's all pretty much the same.
They're
yeah.
all elevated,
They are.
so the roadway becomes a waterway in heavy rains or?
This does, absolutely. This is
Okay.
actually, during last March storms.
Okay.
The water back here, what happens is it floods, her driveway is right here, Margaret's driveway is right here, so the water does come up over in this direction, but it also floods that marsh in the back, actually flooded back up here. I tried to get down here during the storm event, and it was, I couldn't drive my truck down it, it was several feet deep.
And the house was still dry?
It was, she had the original, this is raised up, it was down, the house used to be down at this elevation. She actually had stones that were pushed up against her, these are sliding glass windows here. She had cobbles pushed right up against that before that was raised up, so it definitely was the right thing to bring it up. These are all breakaway slats down here, so if it does happen, again, those would break away, and it's all open underneath, it's just on piers.
Okay.
And the idea is to try to get that revetment up just a little bit to stop the velocity. It's probably not gonna stop the water from going, but sort of slow the velocity and the cobbles from washing through.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks.
Stop this.
Yep, right, okay.
It's probably the lowest area on that section of the road there.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that's a chronic, location for flooding, and so certainly, I mean, that, during significant storm events, I mean, that's what you see. You get all those cobbles and everything out in there, and it certainly blocks access to a lot of other homes.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're ending up too in the marsh over here on the backside.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Ready to open the public hearing, I guess. So, any abutters or public wishing to speak on this? Take turns too. Okay, in that case, I will accept a motion to approve this.
I'll make the motion.
We have to close, I'm sorry, I have to close the public hearing, you're right.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right, all in favor? And as an added feature, I already, what's the status of your PBR?
It's been submitted, it's just, we're
Waiting.
waiting, yeah.
Okay. All right, I actually wrote the findings of facts
Great.
to save you a
Yep.
step, although you're gonna probably be here next time anyhow for a different
I
one.
very well could be, but I won't, I don't mind if this one's behind me.
Okay. All right, Kennebunk Planning Board findings of fact and decision, application of Margaret Jandal by Walsh Engineering authorized agent to stabilize the shoreline along the waterfront at 77 Marshall Point Road with a boulder revetment. At a meeting on December 2018, the Planning Board makes the following findings and conclusions and renders this following decision. Finding of facts. 1. The owner is Margaret Jandal with a mailing address of Post Office Box 382605, Cambridge, Mass. 02238. In a letter dated December 9th, 2017, Margaret Jandal has authorized Walsh Engineering Associates, Inc. to act as an agent in this matter. Property has a street address of 77 Marshall Point Road, Kennebunkport. Property is located at Goose Rocks Racehorse Protection and Shoreland Zones. Property consists of 3 lots, one with a house, map 31 lot 12, as well as unbuilt lots on either side, map 31 lot 11 and lot 13. Owner has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing quitclaim deeds recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds as follows. Lot 11, Book 09280, pages 26 to 29. Lot 12 is pages 24 to 25, and Lot 13 is pages 30 to 32. Lots are legally non-conforming with a single-family residence on Lot 12. Lots consist of the following sizes, more or less: Lot 11.45 acres, Lot 12.41 acres, and Lot 13.67 acres. In an application dated October 24th, 2018, the applicant proposes to stabilize the shoreline in the form of a stone revetment, which will help mitigate existing erosion problems and help reduce the number of rocks washed onto the property. 8. Proposed stabilization will not introduce additional impervious area as the existing ground cover is also stone. 9. Erosion control shall conform to the plan included in the application. 10. Excavated material from construction will be used to fill the building window of lots 11 and 13. Once filled, the area will be stabilized with loam and seed. 11, a Section 8 permit by rule must be approved by Maine DEP before construction can begin. Guidelines for decisions, and we go through the 1010A of the land use ordinance. The planning board shall approve it plan unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of these, and all of these are positive rulings or not applicables. When the proposed development will be located in shoreland or resource protection, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunk Land Use Ordinance Article 10, townwide regulations in Article 6, and performance standards of specific activities and land uses in Article 7, approval of the development will also require the board makes positive findings based on information presented that the perform use will, and there's a set of those which are all either yes or not applicable, again. Okay. Any negative finding by the board means the application must be denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Under Article 1010A mandates that the planning board shall approve the site plan unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial. Decision. This site plan application identified above is approved. Conditions of approval, if any. 1. The applicant, pursuant to 1012E, shall notify planning board prior to transfer of rights to construct the approved project. No assignment or transfer of rights to construct an approved project is valid without prior review and approval by the planning board of a new performance guarantee to ensure that any assignee or transferee has financial capability to undertake and complete the project. Applicant must record a copy of this decision to provide proof of such recordation in the form of a copy thereof attested by the Register of Deeds before any permits may be issued for construction may commence. No permits may be issued until Maine DEP approves the necessary permit by rule. And 4, the applicant shall update the submitted site plan application dated October 24th, 2018 as follows. A, the application shall be revised to directly mention lots 11 and 13. B, the deeds and assessor's cards for lots 11 and 13 shall be included in the package. Dated 19 December 2018. And that's it.
Motion to accept?
And second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you sign? Okay, they're listed. Everybody signed.
Everybody works.
Okay, get the papers moving a little bit. And okay, our next item is 181101, Kennebunk River Club, Eco-Analysis Analysts, Authorized Agent, public hearing for approval of a dredge. So, why don't you proceed while we're signing?
Okay, my name is Bud Brown. I'm from Eco Analysts. I'm here on behalf of the Kennebunk River Club. They are proposing to dredge their 2 marina basins, both of which are just slightly above half an acre, and take out a total of approximately 6,400 cubic yards. This is a repeat of the dredging they did in 2009. Therefore, it's eligible for a permit by rule from the DEP. I'm receiving the testing results Friday from the bulk chemistry, chemical analyses, and as soon as those are reviewed by the Corps, and I found out today the Corps is not going to be shut down if there's a government shutdown. Their Department of Defense. So they can keep at it. They just approved my project in York Harbor, so Proc Marine will be leaving here, going to York, and then they will come back to do this if I have all the approvals in time, which should be fine. So anyway, that's what it is. It's just a repeat of it's a maintenance dredge, not a new activity, and open to questions.
Okay.
So could I ask a couple of questions about the application?
You may.
And the title deed information that's in the application, I found it confusing. Can you walk me through it?
Well, no.
Okay. I'm gonna go on to my next question.
Yeah,
Do you want me to clarify what confuses me?
yeah, please do, and then I'll
So there's 4 pages of information in there, and the application says there's 2 lots, 11 and 23, I believe. So I assume that the first 2 pages, I'm guessing, go with lot 11. The book number and page number do match what's on the property card, which is included in the package. For the life of me, I couldn't find it in the York Registry of Deeds. And
1864.
Doesn't go back that far.
maybe that's the reason, but there was nothing on this that said that it was from the York Registry of Deeds, and that bothered me a bit. So maybe that's typical for things from 1964, but board members will have to.
Well, frankly, I didn't put it together.
Notary public. Okay.
It appears to me that the handwritten part, it has a book and page at the upper right-hand
Right, so what does that apply to?
Well,
The handwritten part?
I looked at the first one, Book 1623, page 104,
Yeah.
and this talks about the western boundary, westerly side of Ocean Avenue, parcel of land and flats on the westerly side of Ocean Avenue.
Right, and if you look at the property card on page 13 of the application,
Right,
it does say that it's on book 1623 and page 104. So that looks like that's, covers lot 11. I noticed there's no property card included for lot
23.
23. 23, is it? Yeah. When I went to the York Registry of Deeds, I did find a deed for lot 23, but it doesn't seem to line up with
I
those
think I'll have to
handwritten
get
pages.
clarification from the River
Okay.
Club.
Anyway, I just didn't want to go bless this without knowing what it
No, I understand
meant.
that, yeah.
That's all. Okay. The second question I had is maybe a nit, but the application says the property is in riverfront, and then it checks off shoreland zone. And as I read the maps, I believe both of these lots are riverfront, and there's a bit of resource protection at the river's edge, but I don't think you would classify this as shoreland zone. It's riverfront zone and therefore doesn't need to be overlaid by the shoreland zone.
Well,
Werner, can you confirm that?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, so technically, I mean, the river does get classified as a shoreland zone, you know, and or excuse me, it's the river,
riverfront.
resource protection.
Right.
I'll get it right here in a minute. So,
It's riverfront and resource protection.
the river itself is resource protection, which is where the activity is occurring.
So I would amend the
The
application.
extra shoreland
Should go
is
to,
wrong.
should go to RP.
Correct, yeah, well, it's not necessary, yeah, you can just, on the application, we just mark off, you know, identify as the riverfront zone, and because the activity is occurring in the river, you know, that's classified as resource protection,
Correct.
yep.
So instead of shoreland, it should say RP on that page, one.
Well, but if you look at the map, okay,
Yeah,
both of those categories are under the general category shoreland zoning districts, and the dredging is going to be primarily in the resource protection zone, but it's gonna be on touching the river. The riverfront area is going to be contacted as well. It's right here, right?
I'm not following. It's
Here's-
not shoreland zone, it's riverfront, right?
Well, it's riverfront and then resource protection.
Right.
Yeah, so
That was
they're
my
both-
point,
they're-
not
they're-
SZ.
They're both under the shoreland zoning district. Okay, so those are subcategories.
Well, no, so riverfront is not a, you know, is not a shoreland zone, it's not a shoreland zone zoning district, so, you have the riverfront zone, which is just one of the standard zoning districts, like, you know, like village residential or free enterprise. You know, but you have, you know, because it's a generally developed, commercial area, it's classified, so under shoreland zoning, you can take, your developed areas and classify them as general development districts, which is what the riverfront zone and the dock square zone are. But the river itself still falls under the classification of a resource protection. Granted, I get the point.
It's a bit of a nit.
It's a little bit confusing in the sense that, you know, technically RP is, you know, you get into this whole discussion of underlying and overlay zones and things of that nature, but the activity is occurring within the, you know, within the resource protection zone. Technically, because that portion of it is owned, you know, and described in the deed, it's also part of the riverfront zone because it's part of the parcel.
Right.
And it's not, you know, it's not mapped as a typical shoreland zone, you know, like you would have, you know, for your areas outside of Riverfront and Dock Square.
Right, and then we cover ourselves in the land use ordinance, Larry, because there's a paragraph that says, regardless, because it's riverfront zone, all of the shoreland zone provisions still apply. Even though it's not a shoreland zone overlay, you're still protected in the same way. It's kind of a nomenclature, busyness.
Well, it'd be great if, that maybe this was reconciled.
It's,
a little bit.
no, there's nothing.
Well, I just wanted the check mark to not be in the, to say, not say
It's not in a
SZ.
shoreline zoning district.
Resource protection.
There's resource protection shoreline zoning district, so look at that list. Anyway, doesn't matter. What about the dredge? Back to the.
I didn't have any problem with the dredge.
Okay.
It all made sense, and as he said, this is sort of a rerun of what was done before.
Well, your question is something I've never run into, so
So,
I'm gonna have to
I
talk
guess
to.
I am ready
Sorry about that.
to open the public hearing to my favorite two publics over there. And I'm going to close the public hearing in that case, so. So I guess, I will move this, move approval of this, dredge here.
Well, I
I'd
had
like
a
to see
question
the-
on that.
I'd like to see the deed
I had,
fixed.
I had a question, so I guess it would be conditional based on getting a property card for lot 23? Is that the
Right,
idea?
and the correct title deed information.
Yeah, so those are
So-
the two,
Yeah,
Property card for lot 23.
right. Well, then, and proper, which one, what deed is there?
so I don't know what's there. It's the handwritten pages.
The handwritten pages aren't part of the rest of the
There are
deed?
It's an older deed.
They're
pages
just-
there, and they have a book and number, but they don't say where they're from.
I think there's a Harry Potter thing going on there. It says you have to look at it in a mirror or something. The property card says, look at book 3142 and page 266,
I don't
and
think,
267 for the deed.
So, well, we need to have the deeds,
just the correct deeds, I guess.
correct deed and the.
And I think the one from 1893, it may be missing the first page, to be honest. I'm not we're just missing the grantee, grantor part of it.
23, it puts you in a whole different place. And it's just this.
So there's an updated deed.
That's probably.
Oh, okay. So we just need the more recent deed. It seems to be one from 2006.
I'm gonna have to chase that down.
Yeah,
So the correct deed from 2006.
1623, 104.
Oh, sorry, 83. I just thought that was 2006. 83, sorry.
And I have time to do that. They won't be back till March, so I will get it to you for sure. You don't know my schedule.
okay, so, in terms of conditional approvals,
To update that information.
to update that information, but is that necessary at this point, or is that?
I don't think the ownership-
Is that a condition that would be there for Werner to issue the final permit?
And ultimately, is the question, are we dealing with the deed for the property across the street?
No,
No,
no, it's the two lots that abut
There
the
are
river.
two lots on
Okay.
that side of the street.
Got it.
And the property card they provided was for the one with the building on that side of the street.
Correct.
I see, okay.
But ultimately, code enforcement is going to be issues the final permits.
That's
for
correct.
the
I mean,
dredge.
we need to have a copy of the core, the core approval before we issue our permit.
Right,
Right,
there's no
but if we put a
question,
condition that says we got the deeds are
Yeah,
straightened
that's
away,
fine.
that would also be something you'd
Correct.
need.
Yep,
Okay.
I like that. There's no question of ownership here. We look at the property card in the assessor's database. It shows it's Kennebunk River Club. It shows the correct deed. I just think the application needs to get sorted.
Yeah. But you've looked at both property cards then?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only one of which was in here.
The other one's online.
Okay.
And I'll get those to Werner,
so-
correct?
I'm sorry?
And I get those to Werner, correct?
You get those to Werner, yes.
Appreciate that.
And Larry has to write a finding of facts about this.
Okay, well, I have a finding of facts, but it's obviously been, we need to have some conditions. The
Yeah, so
conditions-
I'm asking you to, we can read it next time.
Okay, read it next time? Okay, all right, good, all right.
So are we making a motion to
Yeah,
approve,
just,
conditioned
Conditioned on,
upon receipt of the deeds to the two parcels
right.
to clarify the ownership issue?
The property
And
card.
then, did you want an updated application with the correct checked area, or are we with the resource protection versus the shoreland? Or are you fine as is?
I think you ought to say resource protection.
I think it should say resource protection.
Okay, so that, just the two things, I guess, Bud.
Right, and the ultimate conditions include the permit by
Right.
rule.
Right,
Yeah, right. Okay.
That goes in your finding of facts.
Yeah.
So, okay.
so that was a motion. That was a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Which brings us to our final item, which is another public hearing. Oh, boy.
Big crowd tonight.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
What's next?
Item 181102, Sandy Pines Campground. Sebago Techniques presenters.
excuse me.
And Mr. Francis is the case manager.
So,
Just for the record, I did listen to the last meeting on the
Okay.
videotape and think I'm up to speed on that.
so I don't need to go through the whole thing to explain to any board members, unless you want me to.
Well, not for my account.
Okay. For the record, Steve Doe from Sebago Technics, and also with me tonight is Sandra from Ralph's office. Ralph's out of town today. So kind of following up on the last meeting, the board had asked for some more information, so I provided that in the last submittal, which Nina had pointed out about lot coverage. With the previous application, we had to take out roads and driveways. I had forgotten about that. So with this one, we had to clarify new roads being added and roads being removed, so we make sure we're still in that density requirement for campsites. So I submitted these colored drawings which showed where roads were being removed, which are in green, and then the orange being where roads were being added. There's actually a net decrease in roads of about 1,600 square feet, so we're still within that. We don't have to lose any campsites to accommodate for that. And that's essentially all I had. Be happy to answer any questions.
On that point, on the sheets that you provided, Steve, on sheet 5 of 7, you show the shoreland zone area. Removed road areas, 3,070 square feet. New road area, I assume, is 0?
Correct.
And then down, just below that, it says area coverage calculations. Revegetated areas, I was trying to tie the fact that you removed 3,070 square feet of road to that area coverage calculation, and I don't see the,
Yeah, they don't really,
well, the driveway would have been area coverage, right? You removed it.
well, the roads are, what
In the
was a
shoreland
road
zone.
is now becoming a campsite. So there's still coverage.
Really? Well, there's 2 platforms. Let me go to, if I go to the other colored plan.
So there's kind of two things if you're looking, you can't kind of look at lot coverage and roads the same way as far as,
Let's just talk about shoreline zone just for a
Okay.
second. Don't worry about the
Oh,
road business.
okay.
I'm just trying to reconcile the fact that you took out a 3,000 square foot road out of the shoreline zone, and yet the net reduction is only 847 square feet.
because we're adding back impervious into that area. I don't know if that,
It's for your campsites,
it's
correct?
for the campsites. We're adding coverage for campsites.
Let me try to, just
All
look
right.
at the bottom one, forget about.
Yep.
Revegetated areas, 1869 square feet. Now that is, that's a plus? What area is that referring to? I'm just trying to understand those 4 bullets under area coverage calculations in shoreline zone in the lower right section of sheet
So-
5.
Revegetated areas
Yeah,
is, if I look at this colored drawing here, it would be the brown areas that you see on this. I don't know if you need me to come bring this over to you to look at.
but this is the first, this is sheet 1?
No, you don't have this in your set.
Okay,
I can bring it over to you. It would be easier to look on this.
all right. Yeah,
So this, the blue is where the road is.
right.
That's the 3.
Here's the sheet I'm quibbling about.
So what's in
So I'm
green-
looking at that big green area, I'm saying,
Yes.
it used to be a road. Everything except for where you're putting these squares is now not impervious anymore.
And the brown is not impervious anymore.
Correct.
Okay.
But the road removal, all of this,
Yep.
yeah. So it's almost like this minus that is what I was expecting to see in terms of the net. But that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing down here. Where's the 8? Where do I look to see the 18? 1869 square feet of revegetated areas.
That would be the brown areas that you see. All these brown areas, which are, some of them are actually outside the roadway.
So what are those now, those areas?
This is all gravel.
Okay.
Like this is a this is actually a campsite right here.
That's the
Gravel.
existing
That's the existing-
51?
That's
Is that right?
existing 51,
Okay.
yes. And so we're actually making that smaller.
I see what you're saying. So take the roads out of the picture. You're revegetating the brown area,
Yes.
which implies that it is impervious today.
Yes.
And then you're adding 1,022 square feet.
Right, so we have a walkway over here, which is now vegetated. This walkway here is vegetated, and some of these areas, and like this little area here, and a little bit over there, those are new impervious areas.
And are these green shrubs or whatever, those new?
Those are gonna be new trees we're putting in there.
Okay. And now that net savings, that net reduction of 847, you're not giving that back.
No,
You're
we're
gonna
gonna-
go use that.
Right, exactly. Yep,
Okay, so it's a net wash, you're still at 45% coverage
correct,
in the shoreline zone, no better, no worse.
correct.
Okay. Thank you. Let me just comment, Steve, the reason I'm looking at that is, I think that basically we're still looking at a conditional use. And we talked at length the last time about, what it means to be not changing the use, but rather to be enhancing it or maintaining it and the like. And I wanted to make sure that we're sort of keeping the net leafiness of the campgrounds. And I think you just persuaded me that we are in this case. I know that's not a technical term, but.
No, but yes,
You take my point?
right.
I was wondering what that meant.
Shade Tree Committee here.
I'm on that committee too, by the way. Yeah,
Yeah, we don't have that in the definition section.
yeah.
We could think about that.
Leafiness.
Leafiness.
Leafiness, it's a British thing. Yeah. Okay.
Photosynthetic area. Okay,
Synthetic,
photosynthetic area.
photosynthetic, oh, yes, very good.
And you don't have to worry about leaves when you have mosses and stuff.
Okay. Anybody, I have some more questions, but someone else could, okay. Change subjects here. In Area 1, you're adding sites 17 and 18. Two more RV sites. Is it-
Those were approved last time. Those were glam tent sites.
Right, no, yeah, that's right. They are existing sites, but they are now going to be added to the septic.
Correct.
Right. How do you know that that septic can handle two more sites?
It was anticipated in the calculations that, from a volume calculation, that we could, it was designed that if these, when we did this original plan, we had anticipated that we might be able to get some sites here.
Yep.
So we accounted for the flows from those to that septic field and built a septic field to accommodate that.
Thank you, thank you. And Werner, I don't know if we got a copy of it, but I know in today's email, I got something from an abutter,
Yes,
Mr. Casey.
yeah.
Did we get a copy of it today?
Yeah.
I didn't
No, we didn't
I
get a
bring a
copy today, but it's here, and it's a letter from Mr. Casey. I don't know whether you've received
I
it
didn't
or not.
see anything.
What of all the things he said, and I think it's a sentiment that you won't be surprised at. This is, basically, this is an opportunity for us to visit how we're doing with the conditions that were levied the last time you came before the board. I have no reason to expect that we're not doing great with them, but could we take a minute and go through those conditions and sort of say how it went this season?
I had a comment on that too. In going through the application again and going back through the last approval that was done, I'm wondering if some of those conditions still would apply to, I mean, the landscaping, use of native plants, as reasonably as possible, the organic fertilizers, things like that, where maybe it applies here. There's obviously a lot in here that does not apply to this particular application. but
Absolutely.
Just to piggyback off of that. So I think it's a good opportunity to go through it.
So you're saying you want to apply those to this, which,
No, I want to use this, maybe, but can we just go through what those conditions were the last time we met and say, have the conditions been met with?
I don't have the list with me. If you have it, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah.
good, okay.
It's in the findings of
And
fact.
hopefully I can
And I think
answer them.
I think it would satisfy Mr.
Oh, Sandra
Casey's
has them. Thank you.
main concern,
Well,
and it won't take very long. The first one says it's going to operate as a seasonal campground, 15 April to 15 October. Seems to me that's been met.
Yes.
Right? And there's no anticipated change in that.
No.
Total number of campsites shall not exceed 300. That's been met. Total number of seasonal campgrounds shall not exceed 76. I noticed there was no mention of which of these sites are currently the ones where you're overwintering an RV or a park model.
Yeah, I'd have to
or the
go
like.
on site. I know there's not 76 out there now. I'd have to get verification of that, though. So that would,
You would agree that we're still meeting that 76?
I would agree, but I think it's a good thing to at least me to confirm.
And none of them are located in the flood zone?
No.
Okay, so if you could confirm that, that would be
Okay.
great.
Because what, I know there's not 70s, the original intent was to have like 76 park models. They don't have 76 park models
Right.
out there.
And we deliberately didn't use the language of
Right.
park model.
Now, they
there.
do have people that have an RV that are parked there, you know, over the winter. And then they have some trailers that are there. So we got to make sure we're not over that 76 is. So let me confirm that they don't have that on site. Okay.
Then all site work shall be performed under best management practices. Erosion and sediment control, guide for landowners, camp and other gravel road maintenance and the like. Is that the case, that that's
That's-
being adhered to?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, the same contractor that did the initial Labby excavating would be doing this work, and, you know, they follow that pretty religiously.
Shall use only organic fertilizers and pesticides, and no pesticides or fertilizers in the shoreland and resource protection zones.
And I do know they are doing that.
Okay. Native plants in the landscaping to the extent practical. I know last time Nina asked you, you know, what typically plants were gonna be used. You said pine trees and, I forget what the other was, but they were both native.
Yeah, we'll be using native plants in this,
Okay. Same look and feel
yes.
being maintained. Shall inspect all septic systems on an annual basis, maintain and clean them, provide copies to the code enforcement office. And I know this is one that Mr. Casey had a question about. Has that been done?
Well, it hasn't been a year.
Yeah,
So
let me
it says
check.
annually.
They may not do that till the spring before they open, but I don't think it's been done yet, but I can,
Best of your knowledge.
No, I haven't, best of my knowledge, we haven't received any, we haven't received anything, for these particular, for the septic sites.
yeah.
We did do a site visit over the summer to perform a dye test on actually the field that's being replaced. We did the dye test as part of the Maine Healthy Beaches program. At the time, that system was found to be functioning fine, so there was no indication that
Yep.
that was in a state of failure. But that is the system that's being replaced as part of this application.
So you would expect before opening next year, there would be an inspection of the septics?
Yes.
Okay. Fund the healthy beaches for amount of $2,500 a year. Do you know if that happened?
That was done last year.
Very nice. No transportations, no shuttles, no shuttling of campers. As far as you know, that
As far as
didn't.
I'm not doing that, no.
And then there was going to be barriers and signage to restrict the kayak launch.
That was done.
That was done, yeah. And some signage to ask people to shut off their engines when they're queued up, waiting to come in.
I don't know if that's been, I'll check on that.
Okay. And no electronically amplified music. Did you get any complaints? After 10 PM?
No, not concerning music. We get numerous complaints about
About
all
music.
sorts of things. That was not one of them.
That's still the plan. Well, those were the constraints that were levied the last time.
The same as the ones for Arundel, for the Bentleys and so forth, where they complained about nude women running through campgrounds and stuff.
Or lack thereof.
No abundance
Oh,
thereof.
I see. Did you have anything more you wanted to add to that?
No, I think that was good. That was good, thank you.
So I got 3 to follow up on then. They confirmed there's no more than 76 seasonal.
Yep.
The inspection of the septic systems, and then the signs on idling vehicles.
Right.
Okay.
And then, if you would, one more thought, and I'll go back to my leafiness comment. But my take is that Area 1 is being made you're converting it from a glam tent area to an RV, a larger our RV area, at least being able to have all large RVs be up there. Is that going to change the look and feel of that area significantly in terms of its foliage and greenery and the like? You mentioned in the site plan, we're gonna remove this and we're gonna move it somewhere that the landscape architect tells us to, and I.
That would be me.
Oh, okay, so could you comment on
Sure.
what you have in mind there?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm worried about, we'll put it over there behind the dumpster.
No. So this, I don't know if you've been out to the site,
Not
into the
recently.
glam area, but these units, or what these were, the glam tents. For the majority of it, this area is landscaped pretty heavily, mostly in this core area.
Right.
You know, there was some earth mounding. Ted Carter came in there and did, very beautiful landscaping in there. It was more internally focused. So with this plan, those are actually all gonna come out, because we gotta get the road through there and
Yeah.
access. So all those plants are gonna be moved, and hopefully we can move them, into these green areas and try to keep them in that location. Most of them are just shrubs. There's really no big evergreens that are being moved. Those are we're kind of working around, like, there's some trees and spots like this that we're gonna keep in that location. There are some evergreens right here where we're gonna open this road up. Those will be moved, and, we may move them into here. Most likely, they're gonna be moved. This is the middle of the property, area 2, which is really pretty stark,
Yeah.
This whole area is pretty open. And so we want to green that area up. So what you see in brown is, hopefully we can even mound that up and put some, loam in there, put some trees, and maybe move a lot of the plants from area 1 into this area to really make more private sites, instead of being it all open right now. There's not a lot of buffering or greenness between them. So that's kind of the intent. I think area 1 is already pretty green now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nice trees in there that we're keeping. We're not really cutting down any, we're not cutting down any existing trees, big trees. It's just moving stuff that was planted the
In
past
area
year or
1,
two.
right.
Yeah. Actually, no, let me back. There's a tree right here, a birch tree
A
we're cutting
birch,
down.
it says it's coming down.
And there's a maple right on this corner that we're taking down,
Okay.
just to be able to make that turning movement. But those are the big trees those are the only 2 that are coming down.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Well, I guess I'm going to open the public hearing. And not hearing anyone.
Nina, do you
I'm going
think
to close
we've
the
covered,
public hearing.
Mr. Casey's concerns generally?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It did.
You sort of apologized for not making the public hearing, so I didn't want to,
Yeah.
and I know he'll listen to this.
I think on number 1, they're putting in new septic, so there's
Yep,
not an
that's a
issue
plus.
there. And, and the 2 also in compliance with conditions and things. It's only been since April that we did a findings of fact, so
Right.
it hasn't been a year. I don't think that's a problem.
But no, it's a good check on our end. So,
Thank
Do
you,
you want
Steve.
this copy?
if they could email it to me or something, or whatever.
Yeah, we'll make sure you get a copy.
Okay.
Yep. I'm sure Warren will get you one, but just so you have a hard copy.
All right, now, we just laid a couple of conditions on Steve. Do we approve it pending conditions, or what?
I'm happy with that. What other conditions we want to levy him?
I think the only ones that really apply to this application that probably should be brought forward is E and F, which is, shall use only organic fertilizers and pesticides, and should not use any fertilizers in the shoreland or resource protection zone
Those
areas.
can be put
So,
in the findings.
in fairness, us doing an update here it doesn't invalidate the conditions that have already been levied.
That's
I don't think
Right.
we need to reiterate.
No, you could,
Sure. Any of them,
you
really.
could include a statement that, that just verifies that the previous, the previous conditions, are carried forward. And that they're not nullified by, by the,
Covers my concern.
Yep.
recording,
So
by the
that-
recording of this updated set of findings.
I like
Yeah.
that.
The pieces, he was going to also verify the number of sites and,
Right, and it's just that this afforded us a checkpoint. So we'll just, I think, reference that all of those
Conditions still
conditions
apply.
are still, confirmed
Yeah.
to be enforced and being met.
in terms of approval of this, then I don't think he's gonna provide that other information.
Yeah,
Do we need that before you,
no, I think so.
okay.
No, I'd like to move that we conditionally approve this application.
Conditions being,
Conditions being that the only conditions being that the conditions levied in April are still enforced and being met.
okay. That's, okay, I mean, that's something you're gonna put in the finding of facts,
I will.
that's easy. Okay. So we're not, he's
No new-
promised a couple other tidbits to us, but he's
I don't
just gonna
think-
do
I
that
don't think
informally.
there's anything he
Verifying that the
promised that-
conditions have been met, or they're gonna be met.
I don't think there's anything new.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really just following up that,
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
that we've met the
So-
conditions.
Yep. Okay, so Ed's
I move that
motion
we
was
approve this
to approve it.
application.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, so you're gonna have findings of
Next
fact
meeting.
for January 2nd?
You bet.
Thank you,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Now,
We need to sign those Mylars.
Yep.
yeah, we need to sign the Mylars, but we can adjourn before that.
Yeah, I was just gonna remind everyone.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, in favor? Okay, we're off.
Complete?
Well.